So thank you so much, for coming for our talk this afternoon. Let's talk psychological safety at work. As I mentioned, I run a company called StrengthsAsia, and essentially what we do is really helping organizations and individuals build cultures of engagement and around some simple ideas here, right? Number one, how can we potentially be our very best in the work that we do and in the relationships that we have? And also through another methodology called sound wave, how can we have even richer conversations of impact and influence, with one another. This afternoon, everybody, thank you so much for coming. And we are talking about psychological safety at work. And I'm talking this not on my own here, but I'm talking this with a very, very good friend of mine, Lyn Lee, whom I've known for many, many years. My relationship with Lyn started off as a client, and today she's not just a client to me. She's a really, really dear friend and a partner to a lot of things that I'm doing here. So, very quick introductions to Lyn. Lyn is a lawyer. Lyn, is a leader passionate about leadership focus on diversity and inclusion, and in particular, right? And I know this for a fact, she devotes a ton of energy or a ton of her time, coaching and mentoring, younger up-and-coming women leaders. So a very good afternoon to you, Lyn. How are you doing?
Hi, Kim Pong. Great. Really enjoy being here, and thanks for inviting me to speak. So this is a topic that's really close to my heart. But before we start, because it's the lawyer and me speaking, right? I want to qualify that whatever that I say here are my personal views, not to be attributed to my organization.
All right, cool. So I've already signed all the NDAs as required, I think, before we had this talk here. So Lyn, thank you for that very quick one. Now, I would really, really love to hear from you a little bit more about yourself. I mean, I basically have given everybody a corporate spiel, right, about, who you are, lawyer, oh, by the way, she's the head of legal of, one of our local banks here in Singapore. I forgot to mention that, but, we'd really love to hear a little bit more about, yourself, a little bit about your journey, so tell us a little bit more about yourself, Lyn.
Okay, so I do play many different roles, right? And maybe I'll just kind of share with you what are the different roles that I play in my life. So number one, I'm a wife, married to a doctor and a really wonderful gentleman. So for those of you, who haven't had your COVID jabs, please go and take your COVID jab. I'm advocating for that. So, second role, I'm a mom to 2 kids. And again, back to the COVID issue, I have already registered them to take their COVID vaccine, and my son has already taken it last weekend. So my daughter is due next week. The third role I play is, of course, being a people developer in the organization that I'm with. And yes, Kim Pong is a Singapore bank. I hope you come and bank with us as well. And I really enjoy talking to people, communicating to people, and watching people grow. So that's a role that I really, really enjoy as part of my job. And everyone who talks to me, including interviewees, I just had an interview before I jumped onto this call. He just mentioned, I can tell that you're so enthusiastic about what you're doing, why you love your job, and why you enjoy your job. I can see it, right? And I said, yeah, I do actually, and I'm very lucky to be in the space that I'm in now. And the fourth role I play is being an advocate. So I sit on a lot of industry bodies, participate in a lot of meetings and discussions at the industry level, right? And what we are advocating for is consistent standards and best practices for the financial industries, because we are, we want to make sure that Singapore actually thrives as a banking hub, and we want to be known internationally for the transactions that we do.
Wonderful, that's great. Dina, could you help me just mute everybody on the platform except for Lyn and myself? Thank you very much. So, Lyn, thank you very much, for the introduction. And I want to start off with the first question. Again, it's still about yourself, helping people to kind of know a little bit about who they're listening from, right? So you are a leader, you're a senior member of the bank that you're part of. My question is this, right? Why do you think people follow you, Lyn? What is it that it makes people look up to you and trust you?
Okay, so maybe I share a little bit about my philosophy regarding team building, right? I have actually built at least 3 teams, and I'm still continuing to build an enlarged version of the teams that I have actually tried to consolidate together when I stepped into my new role about 1.5 years ago. So my philosophy to team building is always attract the best people, attract the best talent. Give them an environment where they feel included, where they feel safe to voice their own perspective, their own views, and create a culture where people can agree to disagree and or respectfully disagree. I think that is really, really important. And also to bring, to be honest, right, in conversations. So there are many times as a leader myself or a manager of a big team, there are times when we need to have difficult conversations. And I use the word need. So that I do know managers who, I really don't want to talk to this person about this issue, and they sweep it under the carpet and they let it fester and it grows. But normally I try to arrest it, and I try to have what I call a little bit of difficult conversations with colleagues that I feel I need to step in to help them. And when I talk to them, it doesn't come from a perspective where, I am pointing out their faults. No, I don't do that. What I do is I try to let them know, all of us here, all the seniors in the team are here to help you. Tell us what we can do to support you better. So those are the kind of conversations that we do have a lot in the team, and I try to role model it for some of my senior managers in the team as well.
Wonderful. Lyn, when you were talking about what you did just now, a thought came to mind very quickly, right? And this has really got a lot to do with the topic that we have today, which is psychological safety. I mean, you deal with a lot of very different issues at work in a bank. And, can you imagine a situation whereby if something needed to be said, if some things needed to be highlighted, but people kept silent about those things, right? What do you think are the consequences to that, to you, to your team, or to your bank? What's happening, right?
Okay, I would say it's not great, right? Because if you let it fester, it may blow up on you one day, right? So and that ties in really nicely with one of the techniques that I shared with you about, right? So I generally get a sense when team members want to share with me what I call bad news, right? So of course, when we all go to our bosses with bad news, we go to them with a little bit, actually not a little bit, a lot of fear, right? Like what are my bosses going to scold me? Are they going to point the fault to me? So I do recognize that fear because I've been a junior myself. And so when I know that someone is going to deliver the bad news, and some junior may walk to my desk, what I try to do, and literally I tell myself, Lyn, stay cool, smile, make eye contact, let the person feel safe enough to share with you the so-called bad news. I mean, we can't control the bad news. We can't control the timing of the bad news, or we can't control when a crisis will happen. Like, for example, COVID, no one expected it to happen. It happened anyway, and we all just what we can control, and I think that's really important, our reaction, right? Our reaction to how we receive the bad news. And think about it, the other analogy that I spoke to you about, if you're in an aircraft and the aircraft has some engine difficulties, right? And the captain needs everyone buckle up their seatbelt. Does the captain say, oh no, we are going into, some turbulence here and there may be some engine challenges. Please buckle up your seatbelt and say it in a really hurried and in a stressful tone. No, captain says it really nicely. Ladies and gentlemen, we are crossing the Atlantic Ocean and we may be experiencing some turbulence. I'll be grateful if you can all buckle your seatbelts. So same concept. When team members come to me, I smile at them and I say, you have something to share with me, right? I'd like to hear it and let's see how we can resolve it together. So I think it invites them to be open about sharing with you what could go wrong or what has gone wrong. And it invites them to be open about telling you, I know this has gone wrong, but maybe, there is a better way of planning around this and how we can help.
Yeah. I love that analogy really, really much, Lyn. It's about that calm, influential voice, right? That comes across the audio system and, giving people the sense of assurance, openness, and skills and competency in that process here, right? Can you imagine you're flying and then the pilot came across the audio and says, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a little bit of problems here. Whoops, right? And he said whoops, and everybody are like, what's going on here, right? All right, cool. I love those introductions here, Lyn. Now I'd like to kind of move on to our conversation here. Now we have about an hour today, but what we'd really love to do, ladies and gentlemen, who is listening into the conversation between Lyn and myself here, is, if you have any questions or any comments, in the course of this conversation here, we invite you, right, to use the chat box, and kind of plonk or write down those questions or those comments as and when you have them, right? So that by the time we come to about the 45th minute of the talk here, we're going to look at the questions that's already been on the chat box, and hopefully we can, have enough time to answer all your questions. So don't keep your questions to the end, but as and when, as we are talking, if there's any questions, any insights, put it into the chat box right now, right? So I think you know where the chat box is. It's essentially, if you move your mouse down somewhere in the center, click on something that looks like a speech bubble, click on that, and just put in your questions here. All right, cool. So Lyn, I'm gonna now talk about this whole psychological safety thing that we have invited people here to hear about, your views, your thoughts, and your experience here. But before I do that, right, I'm gonna ask the audience a question, and everybody in the audience would love you to use the chat box for your response here. And the question is this, right? When do you feel powerless at work? Right? The question is this: when do you feel powerless at work? So we'll love you to kind of describe the times or the experiences that you have when you actually feel powerless at work. So can I ask you to use the chat box right now and share with us your responses? So I'm just going to wait for a little while, for the responses to come in before we proceed, with our conversation here. Right? So the question, once again, everybody, please use the chat box and respond to us. When do you feel powerless at work? All right. So let's check in on this. All right. I invite everybody here to kind of to share this. So I think a few answers already come in here, right? I think Jane talks about when I encounter colleagues who put me down and attack me personally, right? That's so real, right? And Eileen talks about, when you encounter a career limiting mistake. Oh my gosh, that is so true, right? And that's so interesting, right? What in the world could be a career limiting mistake here? And Leah talks about, when I shared a personal issue and the next thing, you're on PIP, right? Everybody knows about it. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Jyoti talks about when nobody listens, right? When no one is listening. And Anytime talks about, when I got stabbed, by colleagues. Gek Lee talks about when senior or bosses try to push the blame to you or to me, and you see it coming and you cannot dodge it at all. My gosh, this is so real, right? Bilan talks about, when my boss kept silent and did not respond to my feedback, right? So silence, there's no response. You have no idea what the other individuals or persons are talking. Jiaman talks about, when you are not being listened to and when your bosses cut you off when you're talking halfway, you feel powerless on that. And Elaine Lim talks about when you're being accused wrongly. My gosh. Jasmine talks about when no one listens or respect my inputs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for all your inputs here, and keep it coming. So Lyn, you've heard all these responses coming in through the chats here. So two questions, right? One, would love you to respond to those chat responses that came in, and two, you being that senior leader, being that really experienced, seasoned leader, when do you feel powerless at work yourself? So these are the two questions, right? To the chat and then to yourself, right? Go for it.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing, actually, all members of the audience, ladies and gentlemen, really appreciate, and I actually resonate with a lot of the comments that are being shared, in particular when your boss cut you off, or you feel like you're not being listened to, or you're accused wrongly or something, or someone backstab you. And it relates to a time when I was a junior, and I remember I was working in a law firm at that point in time, and there was a mistake on the document, but my seniors wanted me to send out that document to clients, and I said no. It is not the right thing to do, right? Because it's an obvious mistake. I picked it up. We should rectify it before we send it to client. But they were all pushing for me to send it out in the interest of time, because they want to keep the conversations and the discussions going. And eventually, I felt really powerless at that point in time because I had no say, right? I disagreed, but they insisted that it has to go out in your name. I literally said, why don't you send it out? I'm not comfortable sending it out. But they said, no, you're the most junior in the team. Please send it out. That's your responsibility. You do the admin task. So reluctantly, I sent it out. And not to my surprise, obviously, clients discovered a mistake, created a huge fuss, complained all the way up to the managing partner. And everybody looked at me because it was my name on that email, right? And it was a team that I didn't had any, I felt safe. I didn't feel safe with that team because, like you said about psychological safety, I feel like I have to watch my back all the time when I'm in that team. And it's again no surprise that I left quite soon after. And because that incident stayed with me, I am very mindful when I build my own team to ensure that everyone has a voice. So in team meetings, I make a deliberate effort that everyone gets to speak. So if we are discussing, say, a strategy or a direction that we need to take and it will impact everybody in the team, then I will go around the room and make sure everybody's starting from the most junior, because we want to make sure that they are on board when we do the change or the transition. Yeah. So to your second question, should I move to your second question now?
Please go for it. Before you do that, Lyn, let me just do something really quickly, right? Just because I keep hearing some background noises here. So everything that a girl would want. Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second here, right? Let me just do something here very quickly. I'm going to do this. I'm going to mute all. And Lyn, go ahead and turn on your microphone one more time. Turn on your microphone one more time. Turn it on. Yep. Yep. So go to the bottom left and just click. So go ahead and unmute yourself. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Right. There you are. Good. All right. So I've already muted everybody again because I keep hearing some background noises. I don't know where they're coming from. Yeah, please go on to the second one here, right? So right now in your current role, in your current position, right? Do you ever feel powerless at work? I mean, people will imagine the higher you go, the more powerful you are, the more authority you have. You obviously feel powerful, right? But do you feel powerless?
No, actually, I don't feel powerful all the time. So that is something that I want to share, right? A lot of times, actually, I say the higher up you go, the less control you have. And I'll be honest about this. Actually, this was, again, I can recount an incident. This happened to me actually very recently on Monday when we were doing the dry run for this. So Monday wasn't a good day for me. My bosses asked me to do a piece of work which literally involved pulling everybody in the team together, sitting down and kind of collecting certain data and highlighting certain risks to our new CEO. So that took a lot. That was very stressful because I had to make sure that all parties are involved. I have to pull in a lot of people, and I had a very short time to get all the data that I need for her. So it wasn't work that I enjoyed. But I know it needs to be done. So literally I had to, and instructions came in only during lunchtime. After I had the call with you, I had to pull in all my guys at 6:30 because that was the only time when everybody could meet and could be in the same virtual room. We spoke about it. I told them, I'm really sorry about calling them in at the last minute and we need to, get this done. But what I really want to share and kudos and credit to the team is that, I felt really powerless because all the data doesn't sit with me. It sits with different team members. But what I really want to give credit to the team for is that, after I shared with them, guys, I really, really need your help. I can't do this on my own. I know the data is not with me, and I'm so sorry for troubling you on a Monday evening, at 6:30. But they were all very, very sweet gentlemen and ladies who helped pull all the documents together. One of the juniors volunteered to consolidate, and everything was done by 10 p.m. My juniors text me, say, I had got it done, take a look at it. By the time I slept that night, it was 1:30, but it was done and already on my boss's inbox the next morning. And everybody said great work. We were so surprised we could turn it within a day, half a day. So I felt really powerless, but I think with the team behind me, I felt powerful. Does that help in terms of the analogy that I'm sharing why teams are important?
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea here is right, a lot of people have teams, but a lot of people do not have teams that work together. Does that make sense? Right. So, and the idea here is right, I think this is where the power of psychological safety is, right? It's like, how do we, how are we able to influence without authority, and how can we have authority with respect? And the idea is, how, as a leader, how do we create, that psychologically safe space here, for our teams to be able to come together and work, under very good times, and also to be able to work very well together under very, bad times together. So, for those of you who are out there right now, who's just joined us, you're listening to Lyn and I talking about psychological safety. Welcome. Now, to the audience right now, right, I'm going to share something very quickly with you. So Lyn, before I go into that, thank you very much, for sharing your insights on that. I want to move it a little bit more into the topic more directly on itself, which is psychological safety here, right? So, to the audience, I'm going to ask you this really simple question. What is psychological safety to you, right? What does it mean? So when you hear people talking about, oh, my organization do not have psychological safety, or my organization is very psychologically safe, right? What does that mean to you, right? So can I ask, everybody, in the audience today, share with us, what in your view, what in your experience, your own definition is psychological safety? So everybody, please use the chat box, while we wait for your response here. So, thank you, Jean, and hello, Jean, and of course, I know you, welcome, so good to see you here. So Jean says this, right, when it is safe to express your views without being judged, absolutely, right? And Jyoti talks about, feeling safe to learn, to contribute, to challenge, and to make mistakes. Absolutely spot on. Leah talks about, when we can give valid feedback and be our authentic selves without repercussions, right? I love that, the authenticity of self here without repercussions. And Patricia says that, you will not be played out in a team. Yeah. It's like, my gosh, don't use that against me, man. Wee Sin talks about safe to make mistakes and takes risks. Jiaman talks about a safe environment where you can share your opinion, doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong, without fear, without consequences, without repercussion. Meng Hui talks about good relationships equals respect, plus understanding, plus acceptance, plus appreciation. I love that. Annie talks about resolving issues rather than pointing fingers. Caroline Hui talks about when one is not intimidated by your own boss. That is absolutely spot on here, right? Now, so thank you very much, everybody, for your response here. Now, I'd like to share, 4 big ideas, right, on what constitute psychological safety, right? And then after that, I'm going to ask you to take a poll and seek your opinions on this, right? So it's
Kim Pong, we can't hear you.
Kim Pong, you are muted.
Oh my gosh, how did I get muted? Can you guys hear me right now?
Yes, you're good.
Now we can.
Okay, very cool. I have no idea why the system is so cranky today, but anyway, so there are 4 things, right, that we can feel safe, right, in our environment, psychological safe. One, is to help people feel included, right? Because inclusion is probably a very basic human desire, right? If I feel included about conversations, I'm more likely to be able to participate in conversations. The second one is to help people learn freely, as some of you specified here, right? To learn freely without fear and consequences, to fail, without fear and consequences. So do we have an environment, right, that allows us to learn and fail freely here? The third idea of psychological safety here is to enable each one of us in our unique best to be able to contribute at our very best. So the challenge, the opportunities, the problems could be the same for everybody, but the way we do it can be very different, right? To the very best of who we are. And the last idea here is, to be able to challenge the status quo, right? Can we challenge our bosses? Can we challenge our colleagues? Can we challenge, whoever that comes into our path here, right? So these are the 4 things. So I think both Lyn and I, we are very interested to find out, from the audience, right, which one do you think of these 4 elements here, right? Inclusion, learning, contribution, and the last one is challenging, right? Challenging. Of these 4 ideas here, right? Which is the easiest to implement, if you from your experience, and which is the hardest to implement here, right? So I'm going to turn on the poll right now. Oh gosh, what happened to my poll? It disappeared. My poll disappeared, guys. What happened? Oh no. Okay, never mind. The poll disappeared. My gosh, today, if anything can go wrong, it went wrong, right? So let's do this. I'm going to ask you to use the chat box here, right? Of the four things, I'm going to,
Ping pong,
yeah,
the
it
poll is
disappeared.
back. So the poll is,
Oh, it's back?
I think people can see the poll. Yeah, they can see the poll, yes.
Okay, can somebody launch it? Because I can't launch it from my end for whatever reason.
It's already launched and people are voting.
Okay, so go ahead and
Yeah.
share the results. Go ahead and share the results.
Yeah, we give them some
Because-
time. Then,
Yeah.
then we will share the result.
Okay, go ahead. So Lyn, while people are sharing the answers, right? So from your own personal experiences here, Lyn, which is the easiest to implement and which is the hardest to implement?
Okay, I think we need to implement all of it to have
Sure.
an effective team, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but easiest to implement probably inclusion to make people feel included. But I have to confess that with the current remote working situation, it becomes quite challenging because in the current remote working situation, how do you engineer the casual walking up to your colleague and, hey, I saw that you bought this toy to work, share with me more about it. Why did you pick it up? Or walking over to a colleague whom you see is stressed and say, I noticed that you've been really busy with this project. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to help get other team members to help you? So I kind of lose that visual input if everybody was working in the same space. But to me, how I try to do it during this remote working situation is to drop them emails. So I literally have a roster next to me at my laptop in my office laptop, where I make sure that I keep tabs on some of the younger colleagues. The senior colleagues, those who have been with our bank a little bit longer, or with the team a little bit longer, they're all comfortable. They already feel included, right? They're already running as part of the team. But the younger ones, they struggle. Who can they talk to? Who can they turn to if they need support or help? And it's, like I said, it's much harder in a remote situation. And what I do again is to send them emails or organize like some chit chat sessions just to talk about things outside of work. Of course, I ask them, any issues with work, but then I will always make sure that we have some time to talk about things outside of work and understand their perspective, right? Like one of them had a mom who actually contracted COVID and actually was in ICU. So of course I have to keep, in a way, check in on her. And she obviously voiced out her fear about, I really don't want to go into office. I don't want to take the public commute. So because I say, don't worry about it. I will talk to the HR, I'll talk to the division head to allow you to work from home until you're comfortable enough to come back. And all these things, I wouldn't be able to elicit unless they either come out and tell me directly, but I need to create these moments where they feel safe enough to share with me something that they're bothered about.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lyn. So I'm very curious about what the polls are saying here. So Dina Heng, could you share the results of the polls, please? Thank you very much. Are we seeing the results? I can't see anything from my end, so I really have no idea what's going on here.
Yes, you're sharing the results.
Okay, so what is the answer?
67% says the easiest to implement is to make people feel included.
Yeah.
25% say learn safely, and 8% say contribute their best. And then
so
that's the easiest.
All right, and the hardest, the most
hardest,
difficult?
The most difficult is challenging status quo. It's about 75%. And then next is feeling included, and then learn safely.
Beautiful. I love that, right? So Lyn, I've known you for a very long time, and you are probably one of the most inclusive person I've ever met in my entire life here, right? So my question to you here is this, Lyn, how do you help people feel included, in the conversations that you have, in the things that you do? So give us your own personal take on this, right? What do you need to do to help people feel included?
Okay, so for me, I like one-on-one conversations a lot better, or at least within a small group, say maximum of 4 or 5. And I share with them, I'm honest with my feelings, right? And if I can also share with them that, I struggle as a manager myself to cope during this particular stressful times when we are all remote working, and you could have calls scheduled back to back that you don't even have time to go to the toilet. It has happened, and they all can empathize with that as well. So I think, helping people feel included is to be completely non-judgmental, to accept people for who they are, and to recognize that actually everyone is different. God made all of us unique individuals, and all of us would have different views. And I always remember one of the quote from Maya Angelou, right? At the end of the day, no one will remember what you did. No one will remember what you said, but people will always, always remember how you made them feel. So to me, the emotional connection is very important when you want to build an effective team, and getting people to, to watch your back for you and to know that they are there for you. And I always tell my team, this team is not about me. I tell them it's not about me. One day I'm not going to be in this position anymore. One day I'm going to retire. That's my ambition in life, to retire, right? What do we have then? You guys, will be in the team. And how do you want this team to be run? So that's how I try to get ideas from them. I say this team is for the long term, right? If you think that you really like working in this team and you want it for the long term, tell me things that I can implement for you so that you can see yourself being in this same team 10 years later, right? Because I tell them I'm not going to be here forever, right? One day, which I hope that day will come earlier than later, I will need to retire.
So Lyn, let me just
being for the people.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And Lyn, I want to check in with you on a very simple, not simple, on a very common observation all the time, right? So how do you help people, right? So you're in a meeting, you're meeting with your team of people, and and there are always a few guys or few people on the team that's super quiet, right? No matter what happens, they're like in the corner, they're quiet and all that. So my question to you, right, is just how do you help these people feel included in the conversation, or how do you ensure that the team kind of knows, right, that these people are included in the conversations? What would you do?
Actually, I have a soft spot for the quiet ones, right? Because sometimes the quiet ones are the ones who have the greatest contribution, but they are shy about taking credit for it, for example, or blowing their trumpet over it, right? They are shy about that. And I do have one-on-one conversations with them, but I also do tell them, I'm going to give you the opportunity to lead a team, and hopefully they will open up. Hopefully they will find their own leadership qualities, because I think everyone can be a leader. So I'm really big on leadership, and I really think all of us has the potential to be great leaders. We are all influencing other people in our own right already, right? So it's about helping them understand their strengths and developing it.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I think I didn't expect you to stumble over the question, because that is in your true nature, right? Of observing the quiet and empowering the the timid here, right? So this is my experience working with you here. So based on the poll, Lyn, 75% indicated that the hardest thing to do in psychological safety is to enable people to challenge the status quo, to challenge the bosses, to challenge the opinions of colleagues, to challenge the decisions that are being made. Now, why do you think this is the case? Why is it so difficult to challenge the status quo of ideas, opinions, and conversations around us?
Okay. Partly it's our Asian culture, to a certain sense. Culturally, we are taught to, from young, keep quiet, just follow instructions. But I tend to disagree with that. My children argue with me all the time. They challenge status quo all the time. And it can be very frustrating for me as a mom. But I think it's healthy to have that in the team, because I don't want what I call groupthink. I do not want everyone to think in the same manner, and we don't see risk, or we are blindsided to other opportunities, or even a risk that we may miss seeing out on. So I actually encourage diversity of views. Yeah, and it is challenging even for me, to say challenge status quo. When I first joined the bank about 8 years ago, I had to figure out and navigate, exactly, can I challenge status quo, or I shouldn't because it has been done this way for the past 10 years. And it is hard, right? Because there will be what I call the resistors, people who have been doing the same thing year in year and say, why are you challenging us? Please explain to us. But there is benefit to challenging status quo, because if you can innovate, you can create, you can make the processes better, you can increase efficiency and productivity, you can make everybody's job a lot easier. So that to me is actually important for our team. And I am very open about it in the team. So within our team, as in particular for new joiners, I always tell them, you come in, from your private practice firm or from another bank, tell me what you see that we are doing here that is different. Tell me if we should change it. How can we change it? Please do not think of all these as set in stone or cast in stone. You can change it if you think it is for the good of the team. So team interests always come first.
Absolutely. And as you're talking, one of the things that's very obvious to me here is this, right? A leader's role in impacting psychological safety is paramount, right? So the higher you are in leadership, I like to say, the more infectious you will be in determining whether your place is psychologically safe or your place is psychologically dangerous, isn't it? So a lot of us, we have the authority who are leaders, and I think it's you're right. It's about the attitude, the mentality, the conversations that we have that build that psychological safety. But my question here, and this, I want a quick response from you because of time here. I want to move on to some other things here, right? I want a quick advice on this point here. What about people at the bottom, right? What's one advice that you give to people at the bottom that will give them the courage or the ability to challenge status quo?
I'll tell them to, respectfully suggest that their different point of view to their seniors, probably over a coffee session. Keep it informal, keep it relaxed.
That's great.
The reason is all your seniors are, they have too much things in their head. You need to build the environment where the seniors have time to relax over a cup of coffee and to hear your point of view.
Yeah, I love that suggestion, right? Make it casual, buy them a cup of coffee and talk about the problems informally here. Love that idea, rather than to keep silent about what is going on. Thank you so much, Lyn. I love that suggestion very, very much. Now, I want to kind of segue into the next piece here, right? Now, you and I, we have spent a lot of time talking about conversations, right? The conversations that we have with our leaders, the conversations that we have with our team members and all that. Now, can psychological safety happen without conversations? Or maybe the other question is this, right? What is the value of conversations in the building of psychological safety?
I think it's very important, right? I mean, we share our thoughts through communication, through conversations, and conversations impact relationships, some for the better, some for the worse. And to me, you have taught me that when we speak, we should always be trying to engage, not to destroy, not to patronize, right? Yeah, so I always bear that at the top of my head when, in particular, when I talk to my children when they are challenging me. Yeah. So to me, conversations is about engaging people, influencing them, and helping them.
Yeah. And so the thing that we are talking about here, right, essentially is this, right? You and I, we have done we've done our sound wave, isn't it? I mean, I've talked about a number of times regarding sound wave. And for those of us who are figuring out what sound wave is a simple assessment tool from the UK that, it's a set of about 36 questions, if I'm correct, right? And after you have done your 36 question of assessment, you actually will be able to figure out how is it that you talk, right? So in other words, every one of us, we are actually quite unaware and we are quite habitual in the way we talk. And very often if we ask somebody, hey, do you know how you talk? more often than not, people are not very sure of the answer. But once you have done your sound wave, you kind of figure out, what is it that, how is it that you actually are able to talk? So Lyn, I know I'm just going to spring this on you here, right? So my question to you is do you know how you talk? Do you know your sound wave?
Well, I did a test, so obviously I do know, and the test results came a little bit of a surprise to me. But after I shared with a lot of my close friends, they say, "Oh yeah, that's completely you." Right? So my top voice, advocate, and I think it's something that I resonate with. My second voice, which you mentioned, is challenge. And when I first saw the result, I was a little bit taken aback, because when I think of the word challenge, I think of someone being difficult. But then I realized, and one of my friends told me, say, "Oh, but you are always, asking me, can I do this better? How about doing it differently? Or why are you not exploring this as an option?" So I'm always, in a way, pushing and nudging people to see options. Going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was really surprised by that. But after I hear the stories, I understand why. And of course, my third voice articulate. So that is also maybe by training, it's what I do on a daily basis.
Yeah. And Lyn, I just want to tell you, I absolutely am a beneficiary, of your challenge voice every time when we interact together, right? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, when I talk with her all the time, my goodness, I never ever walk away from the conversations with zero challenges, right? I almost always walk away from the conversations with Lyn, always rethinking about the things that I'm doing. Am I doing it right? Should I be doing it a little bit more, a little bit less, right? So definitely that challenge voice of yours, I hear that. So my question to you, Lyn, is, by the way, for those of you that are interested, my top 3 voices in sound wave is inquire, probe, and advocate, also at the same time, right? So Lyn, quick question. Where does knowing about how you talk help you in building psychological safety, with your teams, and how has that benefited you and your teams?
Okay, so understanding how I am and how I may present myself to someone else, I can tone up and tone down depending on the situation. So challenge voice in particular can be really daunting for a junior person, right? And literally I will tone it down. So sometimes what I do before, one of the techniques that you taught me was, before I ask a challenging question, right, I actually tell them up front, I'm really sorry, but I may need to go into a little bit of a more sensitive question on this. Do you mind if I probe a little bit more? Right? I kind of prepare them for it mentally. So all these techniques, I try to implement in what I do as well, so that I create an environment where the junior person feels really safe to share with me his thoughts or her point of view. Yeah.
And Lyn, thanks for sharing that, because it just makes me feel so encouraged, right, to hear your experiences with what you're doing. And I must confess something, right? I think the first time when I thought about wanting you to think a little bit about your sound wave, I actually was struggling to whether to share that idea with you. I'll tell you why. Because I always see you, Lyn, as this woman leader who is really influential, really impactful, very, very articulate, very conversant, right? And obviously, right, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking here, right? But then I said, gosh, well, just because people seems to be like that from the outside, if sound wave is correct, most of us are actually quite unaware and quite habitual in the way we talk, right? So I'm really curious to find out from you. And this question I've never asked you before privately, but so we are in a public space here. I'm just going to ask you this question here, right? Which is, so when the first time I came to you and said, "Hey, Lyn, do you know your sound wave? Would you like to do this thing here to figure out how you talk, right?" I wasn't sure whether you take it as an insult or whether you take it as something else. Would love to hear your thoughts at a moment, when I first popped you that that question, right? Which is not a proposal for marriage, but sound wave, right? Have you ever seen sound wave before?
I think if I remember correctly, I say, yeah, sure, why not, right? I'll be interested to find out. So I'm naturally curious, about what I can do to improve myself further, what I can do to contribute to the team more, and what I can do to help the people around me step up more and in a way be more self-aware. So I was very curious about it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So last question before we check in for any questions from the audience here, right? Which is, what is your advice to leaders? I mean, there are many advice, obviously, you can give to many leaders here, right? What is if there's only one advice that you can give to leaders in building psychological safety, right? What would that be?
I think be yourself, be honest, have integrity. Yeah, and continue to be authentic. Yeah, it's okay, we all struggle. I actually confessed to my team, I'm struggling when I transitioned from one role that I had. I was actually just head of a smaller team, and then I transitioned to a bigger role that I have to take care of the entire group legal team with all the functions. I told them I need your help here. I can't do it alone. Yeah. So it's okay to be authentic. I think it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. I think that's a great advice, and we're going to leave it at that, because I think authenticity, requires confidence and vulnerability at the same time here. And I think that is really, really good advice here. So thank you very much, Lyn. Now I'm looking at the chat. So everybody, right? I'm looking at the chat box. I don't think I saw any questions unless I missed out on them. But right now, we have about maybe 10 minutes, to check in with any one of you. If you have any other questions for Lyn here, if there are, we're going to get Lyn here to kind of respond to you. But if there are no questions, then I think, we will just say, hey, thank you very much. Thank Lyn for the time. Thank everybody for coming on to this session here. And then we'll end this session shortly here. But let me just give everybody maybe a minute or so, right? To, what do you call that? To plunk in any questions if there are. Oh, believe it or not, I finally saw the poll results in front of me. Before that, I couldn't see it at all. I don't know why. Oh my gosh, my system is a little bit cranky today. So everybody have 1 minute, right? And figure out if there are any questions for Lyn here. So so there are a couple of questions here, right? So Jyoti, question is, are there any good resources for leaders to make psychological safe workplaces? So Lyn, I'm just going to check in with you first, right? Before I respond to this. So do you know of any resources for leaders to make psychological safe spaces?
I think there are a few books that you recommended to me. Is it Timothy Clark? And then I like
Clark, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually quite like Simon Sinek, Know Your Why book. I mean, it doesn't really talk about psychological safety in general, but I actually thought it was helpful to understand our purpose at work. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I think, Jyoti, you're already familiar with Timothy Clark's The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. In there, I think he offers some really, really good ideas on how to build psychological safety. That's one. Another book that people that can explore is a book by Amy Edmondson, where she wrote this book called Fearless Organization. And I thought that's a fascinating book too, written on psychological safety. And the third thing, obviously, is one of the things that we are doing here at StrengthsAsia is helping organizations build an environment of psychological safety, through the way we talk to one another, and that is through the context and through the approach of sound wave, right? So I hope that is helpful to you, Jyoti. The next question is this, right? This is from Leah. Whenever I correct junior staff's work, some of them feel demoralized. How do I manage that? Lyn, over to you.
Okay, so I didn't share with this because we didn't have time earlier, but the power of affirmation really, really works. So I use it at home, I use it in the team. So when people do things right, or they give the right behavior, I affirm them, I clap for them, I support them, I shout out loud to the team. So it helps them to understand what the good behaviors are and continue to do it. So when it comes to, speaking to them about a piece of work that may not be like to my standard, right? I think they take it in a better light because they understand that it's for them. It's, it's about them. It's not about me. It's about helping them raise their own standards. Because when we do work, to me, if they submit a work that is not perfect for me, there are times when I just give general comments and say, try again. The easier thing for me to do is actually I just do everything myself and then I submit it, right? But they don't learn.
No.
So sometimes I take the pains to give them general guidelines and say, can you try again? I see potential in you, on this work stream. I think you can do it well. Yeah. But maybe these are just some teething issues. Let's see how we can help you get up to the standard required.
Lovely.
Yeah. So when I talk to them in that light, I think they appreciate and understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
And of course, when they finally get it right, I clap for them. I hooray them. I tell the whole team, what a great job this person has done.
And this again, once again, Lyn, because of my relationship with you, I will affirm that because you do that all the time to people around you, right? And I want to add on a little bit more to what you just said, right? So Leah, I think when you talk about correcting junior staff work, right? I think the word, so to correct somebody is to help people realize what the boundaries are, to help people figure out what's right, what's wrong, right? And I think a lot of time the intention to correct is pure, right? I mean, Lyn, you will agree with me, right? We want to help people be better through our correction, right? And I think it's really about the skills of correcting, Leah, so sorry, Leah, right? And because sometimes we are, so number one, sometimes we may be unaware of how we use that particular voice of correct, or we may be unskillful in the way we use the voice of correct. And as a result, instead of hearing correction from us, people may feel the punishment, from that correction voice here. So I was talking with this guy called Kevin Eyre, who's the creator of Soundwave, and I asked him exactly the same question, right? How do you use the correct voice, well, properly? And he told me very simple, right? Well, there are 3 simple ideas. Number 1, make sure that the person and you know the context to what you're talking about. Number 2, be brief in your correction. Number 3, move on, right? Don't belabor the point, right? So know the context, be brief, and move on, right? So I think that way of correction usually, does work, right? Better than we would belabor the point, talk about the problems, talk about the consequences and all that. I think you know the drill, yeah? Cool. Let's see where else. Jiaman talks about how do you encourage your boss to provide you a psychologically safe space? Great question. So Lyn, what is your response to that?
Actually, yes, I have to admit it's a great question. And it depends on the relationship with the boss. So trust works both ways. Your boss got to trust you, you got to trust your boss. So even before, talking to your boss about building a psychological safe space, is about knowing your work so well, such that your boss can trust you completely. And once you get your boss's trust, then, it's a good time to talk to your boss about, dear boss, if you can help me with this particular matter, or you can support me on this particular piece or project, I would really, really appreciate it. And it's also about showing appreciation to the bosses. So a lot of times, bosses need affirmation. So I always talk about power of affirmation. I sometimes think that bosses need affirmation that they are on the right track, and people sometimes don't give them the affirmation, right? They are sometimes not aware. So if you trust your boss and you know that your boss is genuinely a good person, but maybe just has a little bit of blind spots, then I think that once you can win over the trust of your boss, again, go and have a coffee session, sit down, chat casually, and then present your point of view in a very respectful manner, but just enough to say, when you did this or you said this to the team, I felt like a little bit disappointed, or I felt a little bit demoralized. Are you telling me that I'm not doing enough, or what can I do to improve? So it's about also giving the psychologically safe space for your boss to talk to you. So which is why I say never bring up such conversations in big meetings. Bring it into a casual, intimate coffee session, and if both of you all have sufficient trust and communication, it's a lot easier to talk through some of these matters.
And that is very, very what do you call it? Very, very practical advice here, right, Lyn? And I think Irene, so sorry, has one question, and I think this will be the last question for the day, and then we'll end, right? So Irene's question is this, right? What advice would you give? I'm sorry, not Irene, it's Irene, so sorry, but there's another question here, blah, blah, blah. Irene says, how do you increase trust levels, from your bosses? How do you increase trust level from your bosses?
Okay, so one of the ways I do it is to actually give them update sessions of what I'm doing and what the team is doing, and ensure that they are kept up to date, and I look at things from my boss's point of view. So my general counsel is my direct boss. What is she concerned about? Actually, she's just concerned about a budget, concerned about if the board jumps on her, and concerned about major litigations that may be against the bank. So I keep her really, closely up. I will watch all those cases and closely update her on those things. Then for the other matters which I can handle, I actually do not disturb her on it. I handle it myself, and once it's done, I just report into her. So she knows that I am watching everything for her. And increasing trust level, it really takes two to clap. Yeah, it's about also doing your work so well that your bosses trust you completely.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. And I think essentially in the area of trust, right, as I listen to you, Lyn, I can kind of categorize them into three simple ideas here, right? To build trust with people around us, including our bosses, I think number one is to show them our competency, right? This is what I can do very well in, and this is what I'm really good in, this competency. The second thing that I think, based on what you're saying here, Lyn, is it's about showing, and you said this before a couple of times, is to show people around us our authenticity, who we are. So it doesn't mean that I need to say, oh, I can do everything, right? Or it doesn't mean that I do not want to say, oh, I don't know how to do this, or I need some help in doing this, right? It's about being authentic, to the people around us, to your bosses here. And the third one really is to show care, to show that, the reason you're bringing up something is because you care, for the boss's well-being, for the boss's, role, or for the team's performance and all that. So these are the three simple ideas. I think, if we can kind of figure out how to do that, I think to build trust, that's what it is. Lyn, over to you.
Yeah, so can I add one more? I think integrity is important, right? Integrity is important. So there are times I make mistakes, right? And I will own up. I will take ownership of the mistakes. And that's when your boss trusts you even more, because they realize you are someone of integrity. You are someone, if you made a mistake, will own up and take ownership. And, they respect that. I think it's a hard thing to do, but bosses respect that.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes I think we downplay our integrity to win favors, but actually, right, to be fully you and usefully you, and to be integrity, right? I think that is the greatest gift you can give of yourself to the world around you. So with that, Lyn, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer any more questions. So last but not least, everybody, some of you have been asking, right, sound wave, how do you do that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can go onto this website here. If you can scan it, you'll bring you to the website for you to do your sound wave assessment if you like. And if you want to find out a little bit more about how do you use sound wave to create psychological safety at your workplaces, do contact us at StrengthsAsia. I'm gonna show you this, so you can contact us at info@strengthsasia.com. My team and I would be very, very happy to want to talk to you. So the email is info@strengthsasia.com, and this is the QR code that you can scan, and bring you to the Soundwave website to do what we call your top 3 voices that you use every day. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for staying on. Lyn, always a great pleasure, to be talking to you, conversing with you, and thank you so much, for your generosity and for your wisdom here, right? So have a great day. Continue impacting your team, continue to impact the people around you. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for your time. We hope to see you at our next conversation. Oh, one last thing. I almost forgot about this. So a number of you who may be interested about sound wave besides psychological safety, you want to use sound wave in the area of communication, come join us, right, for our Power of Communication session, right? And this is a Skills Future approved workshop. So once again, scan the QR code, and you'll get you to registration. Or if you need any more information, just contact us at info@strengthsasia, and we will get you there. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for your time. Take care and bye-bye.